Wow, so always in the siding world. And you've worked your way through different manufacturers, I see. You've been with Royal for a while,
Yes,
14
sir.
years. So a good company, has a very good product. They've always been a good product. They do some good stuff. Just talk to you. How did you get started in the industry? How did you get started in your role?
Obviously, as I had mentioned, starting at the age of 12, I got into canvassing. Was just a kid riding a bicycle, putting up door hangers. I had a passion for the business. It was kind of, a little bit in what they call the Tin Men era, which I had my
Hmm.
book coming out, shameless plug, Tales of the Last Known Tin Man, that's coming out, and a movie. But I kind of started and got a passion for that people could go in the home and spend 5, 6, 7 hours and create an experience for someone, and it's an emotional experience to give them an opportunity to change their home. Maybe now their little kids could feel like they live in a home that's nice as Johnny's down the street, and
Hmm.
gave them a sort of belonging because of these things that exterior cladding did. So then I stayed in the home selling side until I graduated college with 2 degrees, one in communications and one in marketing. And then I went to work for Reynolds Aluminum, and I was using my experiences in training companies all over the country on how to sell in the home. And then when they sold, and then I transitioned over to Norandex, training customers, and then went on to Alcoa, where I first started pioneering. So I had my first website in 2000 for the home improvement industry, started doing YouTube testimonials in 2005. I've always tried to be a pioneer, disruptive technology. I just continued training and doing things with Alcoa until they became Plygym. And then I continued that aspect of training companies all over the country and bringing technology. And then I was recruited from Westlake. Royal at the time was Crane Plastics, and had the opportunity to go work for some innovators to do some of the things that I love. But my ultimate goal was to get into a role as a consultant, where Westlake has had me now for almost the past 8 years. And I specifically work with all the national remodeling organizations and sales organizations. And those companies are anywhere from Home Depot to Lowe's to Window World to Champion to Power to Home Fix to Window Nation, Window Depot, all the big players. So I get an opportunity to see changes in the industry, and I get an opportunity to work with and influence the sales organizations of the day as they have changed over the past 2 decades.
Well, that's great. So what do you love most about the role that you're in and the industry?
Well, so one thing about this business is it's always changing. But see, that's not true. See, for about 20 years, it didn't change at all. There was a time from like 85, I think, to like 2000 or so, there wasn't much change. And I think when you don't have change, you get stale, you don't grow, you don't evolve. But with the evolution of all the things that have happened with the introduction of remote virtual selling, which I think will become a key factor. We'll talk more about that later if you'd like. And also, obviously, COVID changed so many things because it forced people to be at home. But let's look past all that. What has really changed is the buying behavior. Because of that buying behavior, people are working at home more. They have more experience, doing reviews. They have more experience in using social media. And it's created a lot of scenarios where it's hard to get emotion back in the selling process, because a lot of people are just so busy anymore, right? I mean, they just don't have time. The average home time was 4 to 6 hours for a sit and pitch. Now, national average is about 2 hours and 20 minutes, right? So how do you do a warm up for 45 minutes? How do you do an inspection? How do you do a product presentation? How do you expose all the pain points and close the solutions to fix them in 2 hours and 20 minutes? But the evolution where I see it's going to evolve for more remote virtual selling, and what AI is going to do and is already starting to do, it's going to take over the call centers to make more efficiency and automation. And you're going to see in the visualization tools to where you'll be able to walk up to a home, take a picture of a home, and it will use all the demographics and psychographics of that area of what the ages are and what the popular color, like right now, white and black, the two popular color combinations, white siding, black trim, black windows. It will know, and it will start evolving recommendations based on your neighborhood, based on the age of the home. Those things are already into play. And on the training side, you're going to see more avatar, you're going to see more technology where it'll actually be able to role play with you as if it was a live person.
That's interesting. And you're seeing that within your organization, or you're seeing that across the whole industry?
I'm starting to see that in the industry in general. what I always try to do, I always try to be ahead of the curve. So I started working on remote virtual selling 7 years ago. I met with a guy named Dale Thornberry, who was the godfather of virtualization. He created EagleTech. He also wrote and designed all the patents that were created for Hover. And then he went on to do One-Click Contractor. But he had the technology where he could take pictures and transfer them into measurement. So what I visualized, okay, so I see this movement happening because you take storm damage, right? So you got 15, 20 claims. You can't get it out to every place. And there's some areas like Chicago are hard to get to, right? But what if they could send you a picture, calculate to measurement, you could estimate 15, 20 jobs. So that's where I started evolving. But where I really started latching on the past year has been with the artificial intelligence. So what I do is I attend conferences for AI and companies outside of our industry and teach them and help them create tools for our industry, and then to do exclusive agreements with us as the only manufacturer. So that's kind of been my play, is to find this technology and incorporate it into the industry.
Wow, that's interesting. The company has that, because I came back from, before I started this business, I worked for GAF for over 10 years. And I'm sure they have somebody like you there now too. They would have to 10 years, but 15 years ago we didn't think of anything like this. It's really amazing. We talked a little bit about how some things are changing as far as virtual, and I want to get back to that in a second. But how do you see things changing within the siding industry itself? I mean, there's a lot of fiber cement stuff out there now, and a lot of other options. What do you see? Any changes? Do you see growth in the future with vinyl?
Well, I think you step back. I think part of the problem with all products is the art of selling has been lost. If you just have to look at a product and not be able to explain the features and benefits or how it solves problems with pain, and every problem has its downfalls, right? Not to talk bad about fiber cement or cellular PVC, because, we do obviously make cellular PVC siding called Select, but it just depends on what you're looking for. Like if you're looking for a product, like the big growth right now is all these government regulations we're looking at, how they're going to shake out with insulated siding. As far as tax credits, it's going to be kind of laid out by state. But insulated siding is the only product that I know that actually has true benefits to your home. It helps channel moisture away from the wall. It helps for impact resistance. It has Preventol in the foam that will help cure termites. It will kill termites. It'll reduce the amount of noise in your home by 45%. It has a high R value. Well, obviously, fiber cement can't make those claims because it doesn't do those things. And it's not a maintenance-free product. What a consumer wants is a maintenance-free product. The breakdown comes in the sales organizations because we're in a transition phase. The old guys, the 45 to 55-year-old guys, refuse to change. So they're stopping and leaving the industry. We have a newer generation, and you can't say the newer generation can't sell because you look at power, remodeling. 3,400 kids, mostly under the age of 24, are the number one sales organization in the country, with an average ticket $60,000, $80,000 in the home with no sales experience. Why? Because they follow a proven system in the home, and they have a successful follow-up and system of everything they do. So that, I think, is one of the reasons why you see a lot of maybe not expanded growth sometimes with siding, because there's a lot of pieces and parts. And then it comes down to install. And install has always been an issue and always will be, because there's an art to installing siding, right? You can't face nail it. You can't use nail guns. You got to have a dime size space. So you have to cut it properly, and there's all these things. And sometimes people just rather take the easy way out. But even your PVC is an issue, right? Because expansion and contraction, if you don't, you have to center pin it and expand it out in both ways. So I think the key is lack of a system. Those who are not being successful don't have a system. And the key is quit selling product and take a consultative approach. Don't come in and tell the customer what they need. Sell a solution more than you do the product. Identify, expose the need, and close with a solution to make it go away. The house is sick, and write a prescription to make it healthy again.
That's a great way to do it. I'm from Long Island, and vinyl was huge out there. Very, very. Royal was actually very big out there.
We kill it out there with King Quality. I was on the phone in the home with
They were clients of mine too. Great. Is Chris over there?
No, he's been gone for almost 14 years now. Jeff Brett is the sole.
Oh, Jeff, good people. Do you know Billy Guest too?
Yeah.
Billy Guest.
Know them
He didn't.
all.
He cited my house.
There you go.
His brother John was a client of mine. It was the big roofer of mine at GAF. So
Awesome. Well, I know Jeff does a lot of business with GAF.
yeah, he does. I'm the one who got him out there years ago. He used to buy from Cameron Ashley, and we used to convert him over. So what changes? Well, you talked about remote selling, and it's funny you mentioned that because there really is not a day that goes by that I don't get a candidate asking me, okay, can I work remotely out of my house? Do I have to be on the road? And I always say, listen, you're in sales, you need to be in front of people. The answer to that is yes. And most of the clients that I'm working with, and we both know who the people I work with, mostly the manufacturers within the industry, wants people out on the road, wants people out there in distributors, wants people out in front of contractors, in front of builders and so on. So talk to me a little bit about remote selling. I mean, what's that all about?
Yeah. So one thing that I started embracing before COVID was remote virtual training, remote virtual consulting. And what's funny is before COVID, virtual selling and virtual measuring and virtual training was more embraced than COVID. When people were forced to do something they didn't want to do, they didn't want any part of it. But there still is times that I do 20 remote virtual trainings a week out of the studio. And to me, virtual as the norm as it used to be being in front of people. I can do 200 trainings before I even do a seminar with Dave Yoho or Rick Grosso to be in front of people again. And they're like, this is weird because I'm in front of people. It's about accepting the norm and understanding, getting comfortable. And the key to it is to be successful, you have to be the same representation remotely as you are live. You have to have the same energy level. There's a lot of psychology that goes into being good at this. You got to have proper lighting. I love what you sent out about having the microphones. You got to have the right cameras. Use a 4K camera. I use a very high definition microphone. I have 3 different types of soft lighting, hard lighting. And I've redesigned the studio and set based on the presentation. And then the monitors, you got to be able to hear yourself on how you're sounding. So there's a lot of art to that side of it. Now, the key is some of the models that I've been able to help create from remote virtual selling is what I call the Vanna White model. It's a very simple approach. So how many times have you had a sales guy come back to you or heard they went back to a sales manager and said what they said in the home, and you're like, if I could have heard that objection, I could have saved the sale, right? You've been in that role, right? Here's how this works. So you have a young college kid, he goes out to the home, he takes pictures of the home on the outside, he gets all the measurements, he sends them in, he comes in, he sets up the laptop, he sets up the window, the roofing samples, the siding, whatever it may be. And then you come in as a remote closer and you do the presentation. He plays Vanna White. He shows the samples. He goes through it. Now, this gives you an opportunity to put your best foot forward. And once you understand all the needs that he sent you pictures and videos, and you have all this, now you can remotely close and assist that customer. That's one way. What about this? How many customers sometimes don't get off work till 11 o'clock? You're not ever going to be able to go pitch them in their home. They want you to come in at 11 o'clock. But what if you could do a remote presentation to them and send them what I call the demo box? Send them pieces of the siding, send them chemicals, send them things, and then you get on the phone with them live and demo them as they demo themselves, make it emotional, right? Or you send samples to them. The only thing that kills this process is color, identifying a color. You can't make a decision on color on a computer screen. It's not going to be accurate. So getting those sample box, the virtual boxes, I call it, to them, or they can pick it up and they can go through that process with you. That's one way. And the other way that I, kind of explained, but it can be successful. The key is you have to understand you can't no death by PowerPoints. You cannot make PowerPoints. You can't do presentations. It all has to be live demo. Like this table I have here, when I train, I literally do 100% live demos. So I got my chemicals on the wall over here but I do the live demos with the customers. And that's part of the process. We even used to I patented a system called driveway selling during COVID, where I would literally pull up in the driveway. I would take pictures of your house. I would set a table out front, all the samples, and I would set in the car. I would put a computer or an iPad on the table and sterilize it. And then I would set back in the car and I would virtually communicate with you through video. And then you would demo yourself, and then I would take pictures of the home. So it's all about evolution and evolving. But think of how much time you save. You can only see so many customers, right? But you can use this. The thing that I see this going to, in my vision and dream in the next 5 to 10 years, I visualize I can have 10 salespeople around the country with 10 different shirts in their closet. And let's say a Champion, or let's say a Home Fix, or a Window Nation, or a New Pro, or a Nestcore, whoever it may be, can be in the home. They'll use my guys as remote closers. They'll go in, set it up. The guy will put on the shirt. He'll remote close whatever the product he specializes in. Then I could set up a warehouse of 30, 40, 50 remote closers who actually are focused on the art of selling, because that is becoming a lost art of what we do today. Sorry for a long-winded answer.
No, that's okay. This is all we're talking about mostly is the contractor selling to the homeowner. What do you think as far as on the building material side, somebody who was working for Royal, somebody who's working for GAF, could that be done virtual?
There is so much integration technology that has already been brought into play that Beacon is using, like actual GPS tracking and the delivery of products and video and virtualization. I mean, anything you can dream up with all these advances in artificial intelligence and integration is possible. There is nothing that's not possible now. Like if you say, I have a need, I would like to see, like I had somebody call me today and said, tell me how it could take a set of plans, a builder could take a set of plans and show that a homeowner could have all these different color options and turn it to a sample. Well, you can do that using Chameleon, RenoWorks, our Dream Designer tool. There's a lot of tools out there, but you will see a lot of artificial intelligence, I think, start to come into play of deliveries and efficiency, and like more of a CRM approach, right? Where it comes in and they manage the call all the way through the process. Like the customer was called back at this time, it's going to the home at this time. And that's one of the biggest problems in sales, is that there's no communication after the sale, through the sale, or after you get the check. Because a lot of times people, when they get the money, they're glad to get in. They just run, they do the sprint and hope that nobody catches them before they get away, right? Because they're afraid that something's going to, you can't approach it like that. So you will see much more integration in managing through the sales process. And there's a lot of that stuff out there, like John Nemesis and a lot of those tools out there currently.
So the whole industry's changing. It's crazy, it really is. But yeah, so post-COVID, you're seeing, I would think that what you were working on prior to COVID, this really took off after COVID. And it's getting its old steam, or it's gained its old steam.
Yeah, what happened, all the virtualization approaches were like rocket ships before COVID. Then it died. And I used to use the phrase virtualization killed socialization, right? Because it made people be forced. But then when they came out of COVID, and a lot of folks would rather work 3 or 4 jobs to be at home. And think of the old persona. You can never be productive at home because you wouldn't work. Now it's the opposite. People are more productive. When I'm off the road, I'll put in 16 hours. When I'm on the road, I'm in rental cars, I'm in airports, I'm in airplanes, I'm in hotels. It breaks your cycle. There is a lot of efficiency, and people are able to transfer emotion more through virtualization and tools like RealVoice. Not sure if you're familiar with RealVoice, but it's a speech analytics tool that's used to manage sales performance. I could actually put this behind our presentation right now, and it will tell me how many words I said, what I should have did different, if I talked too much, if you were a customer, if you threw up an objection, how I didn't handle it properly, even send a message to the sales manager immediately to say, Paul's on the home on a virtual call and he didn't handle this properly. You may want to send him a text. So you can manage the performance when you put in the key tracking words of your entire sales force and not even be active. Like you could have 25 people selling the home and manage all their performance just from the analytics and the reports instantly. That's the type technology. It's called RealVoice. It was created by a gentleman named Sebastian Jimenez out of Brooklyn, New York. And this guy will be the next Bill Gates. He was one of the first artificial intelligence companies I worked with over 3 years ago. And it's unbelievable. If you've not heard of it, you got to look it up. Real Voice will absolutely.
We'll definitely check that out. Okay, you mentioned goals that you would like to, within the next 10 years, have a team, 10 people or more pushing what you're doing. Any other goals that you have in the next 1 to 3 years?
I'm actually working with Real Voice to create a role-playing avatar series. So you would go through, and as a salesperson, you would have different avatar consumers that would come up, would be artificial intelligence, role play with you, throw you objections, and you handle it, and you go through all the levels and you get to the top level. And my avatar will be at the top level where you'll have the toughest objections and the hardest things to overcome. So that's first phase, is that virtual training module. My second goal is, I've been on the speaking circuit for, over a decade. And, unfortunately, a lot of that's going to change. I mean, Mr. Yoho's 96, Mr. Grasso's 81. So what's the next evolution of training? So I visualize creating a training platform that could have you, it could be me, it could be 5 or 6, 7 other people, or 20 other people. And the consumer goes on, they choose the speaker, they choose which topic they want to speak on, right? And then you will have a moderator that will be an avatar that will transition from piece to piece, but they customize their own virtual training modules. And the thing about AI is these things learn. They learn, and they learn their own responses, which is unbelievable. But I believe I can create a virtual training module that you can go on and choose any time of the day and make it feel like it's live, interact with it, and it all be artificial intelligence, and the capability. If this was my avatar right now, you could ask me a question and I could be remote and even answer you through my avatar.
Wow, and that's good for any industry too. I mean, that doesn't stick to building materials. It's endless. It's endless. Yeah. That's really neat. The applications are really neat on that. Somebody coming into the building materials industry, new to the building, into the industry, what words of advice would you give to them?
I think if somebody wanted to have an amazing career, and if they're willing to work, there is not an easier place to succeed than this industry. And I'll tell you why. Because all the culture, you've been in this business a long time, and you may or may not admit, the culture that we were in is diminished. It's gone. Like, you just can't go and sit and spend an hour and be a professional visitor with a guy anymore. You got to have a reason for people to do business with you. But it really comes down to hard work, and it comes down to this. I train people, when you're hiring people, on the flip side of this, hire the right person and add the skill. Don't hire somebody with the skill set and hope they'll be a good person. If it's not somebody you would have over your house for dinner, then it's not somebody you want to hire. So we got to hire the right people. We got to hire passionate people that want to make a difference. And then we got to learn how to manage them. You can't manage everybody the same. Everybody's like a cookbook. They got a different recipe. Every recipe turns out a different taste in the food. You can't manage everybody the same. And that's been a problem, is that salespeople come from a role where they didn't want to be held accountable as salespeople, and now they're sales managers, and now they don't want to hold people accountable because they don't want to be accountable. And then production. But if you're willing to work, if you're willing to go in and listen and be a good soldier, because the biggest problem is everybody comes in with a better mousetrap, they think, right? Well, even if it's a better mousetrap, sometimes if it's decision made, it's decision made. Follow the structure, follow the system, be a good soldier. If you will come in with the mindset of helping people and changing people's lives and quit selling and helping people buy. I have made more $1 million salespeople than I can count. And the secret solution to that is to quit selling and seeing people as dollar signs. See as a chance to make their life better. And your life will flourish with more money and more success than you could count.
And that's great advice, because you're right. That art's been lost. And anybody who still can do it is very successful. And that's some great advice. Well, listen, I appreciate your time. I really do appreciate your insight. Very interesting what you're doing. I'd like to learn more and stay in touch and learn how your new AI program is working, because that's really intriguing to me. Especially, I'm thinking in the recruiting world, as far as doing that virtual training or something like that. That's incredible. That's a big deal.
Absolutely. And I appreciate what you're doing for the industry and trying to give it a shot in the arm and keep it alive. One man can't do it alone. It takes all of us. But if I'm out on the road, anybody would like, you can find me. I'm at all the Grasso events, Yoho events, qualified remodeling events, sometimes with Tony Hody and G4 Marketing. So just keep up with me on LinkedIn. It was a true honor. And if I can be of help to anyone, please don't hesitate to reach out.